5. Is there a motion to call the meeting to order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. As a reminder, this meeting will be audio and video recorded. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've got a number of executive sessions and then come back into open session for budget review and warrant final. First executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, United Steelworkers, AFSCME, Fire, EMS, Police, Teamsters, DPW, impact. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, and the board will return to public session at the conclusion of the executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session number 1?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Gasper?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
All right. Executive session number 2, under executive session of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, police, Teamsters. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and the board will return to public session at the conclusion of the executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session number 2, Mr. Gasper? There's a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Mr. Gasper?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Executive session number 3, executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, AFSCME. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, and the board will return to public session at the conclusion of the executive session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Gasper?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
I'm a yes. We are now in executive session. Is there a motion to return to session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Kelly's going to walk us through the FY26 budget. Yeah, no.
Okay. Reserve fund, $150,000, no change. Town meeting elections, $14,280. Moderator, salary total $725. Expense $150 for a total of $875. Selectmen, $236,400. Expense $16,000. $252,400. Finance committee $2,500 for salary, $400 for expense, total $2,900. Accountant, $200,506 for salary, expense $63,900 for $264,406. Assessors, $121,626. Expense $67,870 for a total of $189,496. Treasurer collector $212,107 salary, $71,600 expense, total $283,707. Town council $100,000. Technology $23,165 for salary, $220,550 for expense, total $243,715. Town clerk $154,985 for salary, $7,500 $1,501 for expense, for a total of $162,486. Board of Registrars, $11,000 for salary, $14,826 for a total of $25,826. Conservation Commission, $79,371 for salary, $2,000 for expenses, total $81,371. Soil Board, 0 for salary, $15,800 for expenses. Planning Board, $46,957 for salary, $9,600 for expenses, $56,557 total. Board of Appeals, $3,505 for salaries, $3,150 for expenses, $6,655 total. Town Buildings, $146,183 salaries, $86,000 expenses, $232,183 total. General Government, $2,082,657, decrease of $23,017. Police Department, Public Safety Police Department, $2,720,204 salaries, $230,061 expenses, $2,950,265 total. Fire EMS, $998,174 salaries, expenses $213,750, and $1,211,924 total. Inspectional services, $147,989 for salaries, $19,900 for expenses, $167,889 for total. Sealer weights and measures, salary $1,169, expenses $1,050, total $2,219. Emergency management, $4,000 salaries, $13,900 for expenses, $17,900 total. Animal control, $54,790 salaries, $7,240 expenses, $62,030 total. Forestry, $1,000 salary, $17,000 expenses, total $18,000. The total for public safety will have to be adjusted for the two budgets that were just adjusted in executive session. Old Colony, education, Old Colony, $3,243,522. Acushnet School Department, $16,534,645, for a total of $19 million, sorry, $778,167. Public Works, Highway, $435,656 salary, $578,200 for expenses, $1,013,856 for total. Snow and ice, $110,000. Street lighting, $27,350. CMAS, $45,000 for salaries, $1,314,062 for expenses, $1,359,062 for a total. Cemetery, $5,500 for salary and $1,325 for expenses, $6,825 total. Water reserve funds, $60,000. Public Works water, $233,416 for salaries, $1,613,430 for expenses, $48,852 indirect costs.
Hold.
For a total of $1,895,698. Water debt service, $207,000. Human Services, Board of Health, $132,778 for salaries and $29,385 for expenses, for a total of $162,163. Council on Aging, $113,051 for salaries, $23,884 for expenses, for a total of $136,935. Veterans, $20,772 for salary, $121,625 for expenses, for $142,397. Library, $248,063 for salary, $57,557.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't read my own writing. For a total of $305,620. Recreation, salary $10,000. Expense $15,225 for a total of $25,225. Parks Department, $29,000 for salary, $20,967 for expense, $49,967 total. Historical Commission, $7,660. Miscellaneous, $4,000 for salary, $8,000 for expense, total $12,000. Regional Government, $3,805. Debt principal, $337,000. Long-term debt interest, $86,380. Short-term interest, $61,250. Pensions, $2,079,012.
Hold.
Insurance, $2,605,789. And then discussion on the holds.
Mr. Kelly, did you see discussion on the hold?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
So, Mr. Kelly did some different calculations in indirect cost. We've carried the health insurance, workman's comp and all that, all the insurances we've carried in water, sewer, and golf. However, because of the budget that we faced again this year, budget constraints we faced this year and the increased revenues that we've already used, he's tapped into and added indirect costs to water and sewer for pensions in the amount of roughly $10,000 to each one of those accounts. My issue is we never had this discussion prior to discussing budgets. Second of all, my bigger issue is after I've learned where all of our stabilization accounts and enterprise retained earnings money goes, is usually held in its own bank accounts, accruing its own interest. However, the water revenue fund, because it's not set up as an enterprise fund, and this hasn't been just going on under Mr. Kelly, this has been past practice for 10, 15, God knows how long, 20 years, maybe longer. The water revenue fund, the retained earnings that sits there, and we've had roughly $1.3 million sitting in there now, 747 plus 600 for an article, but prior to that it was 1.3. The interest from the water revenue account should technically, because that's interest on the water users' money, that revenue should just be, that interest should be going right back into the retained earnings and compounding retained earnings for the water revenue as it does for the sewer, golf, stabilization, all these other stabilization accounts. They accrue their own interest and it just keeps compounding the way it should work. After doing a little bit of research, I've learned that the amount that we carry in the water revenue fund, surplus, retained earnings, should be earning us water users roughly $35,000 to $45,000 a year, and it is. The problem with that money is it's floating into the general fund, turning to free cash to be spent year over year for all of these years. So the moral of the story is when I see something that hasn't been discussed with the board, we have been carrying all the insurance, but there's an additional 10 grand in water, 10 grand in sewer, and that's trying to be pulled to make budget this year, which we can still do, to make budget this year and not have that discussion of indirect costs and how things will be calculated. I'm a bit offended by that as at least one man on the Board of Selectmen, because, and we should all be, right? Because that money is technically yours, the water users' money. So if you take $35,000 and we just say this behavior's been going on for 10 years, the town has kept $350,000 of our water users' money. That should be water user money. and that hasn't been the case. And now for us to come and say, the last minute, and additionally, we want 10K more of your money and 10K from sewer, I'm a little bit disturbed by that additional indirect cost. We have upped the indirect costs that we have been carrying in water and sewer. I'm fine with that because numbers do change and increases do happen, but to hit them with the new pension thing, I'm a little disturbed by that, especially how much money the town's kept of the water, uses money over the time that I just described. And that's being very conservative, 10 years, 35K. No, I just want to bring that to your attention that there are newly implemented indirect costs in the form of pensions to the water and sewer. And I think it's a shame that that money's been grabbed all these years, and yeah, we're on the money grab to grab more at the last minute.
Do you have a remedy?
Do I have a remedy? I could easily get rid of the two $10,000 pension costs that we've applied towards sewer and water revenue fund for right now until we can get a better grasp on what we're gonna do with our water revenue fund and let it float to where it is. There's a revenue source that we can utilize to offset that shortfall of roughly $21,000 and not do the indirect cost for pensions to sewer and water. So
Okay.
yes, Mr. Kelly and I, as we've done prior to this meeting, is make sure we have a balanced budget, and we've reviewed revenues to make sure that we're at least somewhat satisfied with the additional revenue we're using to balance this year's budget.
Okay,
Excellent.
great. So that's reflected in this, or what, so I'm
Nope.
a little confused.
Nope.
No, I will,
So you guys solved the problem before the meeting, or you didn't solve it?
We had a discussion about it after we were all done. I had about 15 minutes prior to the meeting, and I've been sitting here for, I don't know, now 4.5 hours. So I was here 3 hours before the meeting to make sure that I could do this with Mr. Kelly, and we were both confident that we had a balanced budget and all the numbers that Mr. Kelly was gonna read to the public and to this board for approval were accurate numbers. I believe the numbers to be accurate. The only thing that I'm questioning is indirect costs for pensions to sewer and water. And if we reduce those two amounts from the budgets, the 10,000 and change,
I can
adjust revenue.
back them out of each, it's approximately 10,000. I'll see the figures and back them out.
so all we do is reduce each one of those indirect costs that are in the actual budgets that are laid out in pensions only. 10,000, 10,000, if that's the number, it's inside the individual budgets, and then we just add it back to the other side of the pension, so everything equals out. So I'll make a motion to eliminate the pension for the water and sewer accounts in the amount of roughly $10,000.
Amazing. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, I have to do research to see if there is a method that you can make sure that the interest from the water receipt reserve account doesn't eventually revert to free cash.
Right.
I'm not sure. I know an enterprise account and and an article account, you can do it on. I'm not sure on that one.
Okay.
One way, Mr. Chairman, one way or another, as Mr. Kelly alluded to, I know there's been some past discussions because the large majority of water users across what we have as a population and household and commercial properties. For some reason, the town didn't do it all these years, so, you know, I'm already looking into it and talking to people, trying to figure out why it was set up this way, and if we do just move to a full-blown enterprise fund as sewer is and golf is, you know, what's the harm in doing something like that to be able to protect that money and let that accrue on its own? It's very beneficial that we do something, because that accrual of interest benefits the water and sewer users, because we're not trying to make up by rate increase surplus. And that's what we've done, and we've done a great job of getting to a number that everybody's happy with for surplus in case something catastrophic happens. When you get to that certain number, you no longer have to be building surplus to the rate, which helps everybody at home, all our water users, because the interest earned every year will do that automatically for you. i.e., that's the whole purpose of having these individual stabilization accounts. At some point, you shouldn't have to fund them anymore, because the interest is just earning so much, it's already doing the job for the community.
Great. Very good. All right, anything else on the budget? Need a motion to adopt?
Motion to approve the budget as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Mr. Kelly, thank you, and Jamie Lynn for the work that you've done on this. I know you get a lot of moving pieces, and thank you, Kevin, for your help as well.
You're welcome.
All right, next item, I guess we got the warrant. We went through this last go-around. Any revisions or any questions?
Obviously, from what was just said, there are two articles after the budget articles that I'll have to review. I would ask that they be approved, subject to review. One is the sewer article, just to make sure in the indirect costs that we appropriate everything, and the other is the golf article.
Okay. Fair enough.
But you've approved the other articles prior.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's a wrap. No other further business? All right,
Selectmen's announcements.
yeah, what do you got?
Happy Memorial Day to everybody at home. Be safe this weekend. Going to be a lot of things going on in the neighborhoods, especially some of our busier roads where people have parties and people are parking out on the major roads. Just be safe and pay attention to where you're going. Other than that, enjoy the weekend. Have a blast.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to touch base on Memorial Day weekend, Saturday at 9:30 at Polk Park. Our veterans agent, Brad Fish, is putting together a ceremony while he put it together. So you might see some extended traffic around Polk Park at 9:30. It's not a parade though, just a ceremony. And all are welcome to attend.
Right, very nice. Good stuff. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
In favor? All right.
Aye.
Motion, meeting is adjourned.